Hello everyone, this is ACHAIA Akaya, and this is the second video in a series of videos that I'm putting together for the challenge missions in the single player portion of StarCraft 2. And if you recall, the first mission was the Terran or not a tutorial really, but it was a Terran challenge mission in which you were given a group of Terran units. You had to split them up and take on basically 3 small battles using the correct counters, and then of course unit micro to make the most out of everything that you're given against the forces you're facing off against. Now, this one is the Protoss version of that. It's called Path of Ascension, and in this one, it's basically the same concept. You've got 3 separate battles. You're protecting a pylon instead of a supply depot. And anyways, in round 1 here, here's the units that you're given. You got Stalkers, Zealots, Colossi, and 1 Sentry in the mix, and the first set of units you're facing off against here is a group of Hellions. The second set of units is just a bunch of Marines, and the last set of units is all Marauders. Now, the way I split this up is I send all of the Colossi over to the Marines, all of the Stalkers over to the Hellions, and then all of the Zealots go down to take on the Marauders, and I send the 1 Sentry down as well to help with taking on the Marauders. Now, the way that we play this out here, I'll show you in just a second here, is the Stalkers, you basically want to take on the Hellions using the Blink Micro. The Colossi you want to take on by lining them up so that they do as much linear splash damage as possible, and then the Sentry and the Zealots get us around while you use the Sentry Hallucination to take the initial damage. Now here come the Hellions, going to get the Stalkers up, and as you can see, spreading them out so that they can do their attack damage without taking too much linear splash damage from those Hellions. And of course, when one gets low, blinking it to the back or pulling it back so that you can get it out of the line of fire and not take any casualties in the early game. And Hellions really don't do a whole lot of damage against Stalkers, so this should be relatively easy as long as you just keep an eye on your units and make sure that as soon as one gets somewhat low, you're pulling it back so that it's not taking too much damage or getting knocked out. And there you go, you can see that was relatively easy. Did that with no losses at all. Now here's the second one, Colossi facing off against the Marines. Now Marines are very, very bad against Colossi. Of course, there's a lot here, so you have to be aware and make sure that none of your Colossi take too much damage. But if you line them up like this, they will just overlap splash damage a ton and just massacre these Marines relatively simply. And as you can see, pulling back one of the Colossi there, just trying to make sure that none of them take too much damage. Again, I don't even know if you need to do that, but either way, that's relatively easy as well. As you can see, no losses there once again. Now this one's a little bit trickier, hallucinating 2 Archons with the 1 Sentry that they gave you, and then basically using those Archons to take the initial shots from the Marauders while the Zealots charge and get into range to take these Marauders on. Now, one thing that's important is when you see a Zealot get low, you can see I tried to pull that one out there, but I was a little bit too slow in getting that out of there. But as you see Zealots get low in HP, just pull them back, and I did get one out of there fine. It has 1 hit point left, so there you go. You're getting another one out of there as well. You want to time that so that they take as much damage as possible without actually dying. And as you can see, I did have 1 loss. If you do that perfectly, you can do it with 0 losses. So definitely keep practicing and playing around with the micro so you can figure it out. Here's round 2. You going up against a group of Thors, a group of tanks, and a group of battle cruisers. Now, the way I split the army up on this one is I send the Void Rays down to take on the battle cruiser along with my 1 High Templar. The Immortals go to take on the tanks, and then I send the carriers after the Thors. Now, the Thors do a lot of splash damage against light units that stack very easily, such as Mutalisks. So they are often referred to as a heavy anti-air unit, but they do not do very good at all against massive units such as the carriers. So the carriers are a great counter for that. Of course, the Immortals with their hardened shields don't take as much damage from the siege tank's initial blast as a lot of other ground units, so that's a good counter for that. And then the Void Rays being able to charge up their ability, so powerful. So here we go, Thors against carriers. This, again, is not a hugely difficult micro battle here. Basically, you just want to attack move with your carriers and then focus fire down 1 Thor at a time. And then if any one of your carriers start taking too much damage, you can pull it back a little bit. But really, there's not a whole lot of micro at all required for this challenge because Thors do so little damage to carriers, especially when they're not focus firing. These Thors are just pretty much auto-attacking, which means they're targeting interceptors. Sometimes they target the carriers, but they don't all target the same carrier. So just make sure that you don't let any of your carriers get too far into the red, and you should have no problem taking on these Thors right now. Now going on to the second challenge here, or the second part of this round, we've got these Immortals taking on the tanks. And as you can see, there's 7 immortals here moving into range here, and these tanks are going to immediately start firing, and some of them will probably go into siege mode as soon as you get into range here. Now the important thing is to get in as close as you can, so moving as much as you can and attacking as much as you can while moving is key. So make sure your attack moving, stopping, attack moving, keep yourself moving as much as possible. I had 3 casualties here, which isn't perfect, but it's good enough to get you through, so you can definitely sustain less casualties if you work on it. Anyways, here's the matchup against the battle cruisers, and what I do is use the Void Rays, send them all to charge up on 1 BC first, use the High Templar for feedback, and then as soon as you can, you can see once again I didn't grab that first Void Ray quick enough, but if you can manage to grab the Void Rays before they get too low on health and pull them back, then once the Void Rays charge up, they should have no problems finishing off the rest of the battle cruisers there, and you can see only 1 loss there. So far only 5 losses in the first 2 rounds. We've got 1 round to go, and we've got 5 more losses available to us, so very, very much in an achievable range for gold. Again, you can see there's 3 different factions here. The first one was Vikings and a battle cruiser. The second one was Hellions and Reapers, and the last one Marauders and tanks. And the way I split this one up is send the 3 Colossi and the 1 High Templar over to take on the Hellions and the Reapers, and the Stalkers and Archons to take on the Battlecruiser and the Vikings, and then all of my Zealots, all of the Phoenix, all of the Immortals, and the 1 Sentry that it gives you to take on the Tank and Marauder army. And that is the most difficult one as far as handling the micro if you want to absolutely minimize your losses as much as possible, just because it's a difficult unit combination to deal with the forces that they've given you, at least as far as dealing with it without getting any losses. I don't think anybody would have any qualms about saying it's easy to take that army on, but doing it without losing any units can be very difficult. Now here we go. The Stalkers and the Archons are going to take on the Vikings. There's 5 Vikings and 1 battlecruiser, and this once again is pretty much an easy attack move. You can see even some of the Archons are getting stuck in the back lines, but still not really going to affect it too much. Those Vikings not even able to land because they're standing right over top of my Archons and my Stalkers, so the Vikings not able to land. The BC goes down very quickly to 2 Archons, and then the rest of it's cleaned up by the rest of the Stalkers. That was relatively easy. Here comes the Colossi and High Templar match. Now they're going to be taking on Hellions and Reapers, and neither one of these do too much damage to Colossi, but the thing you got to be careful about is when Sty Storming with your High Templar, you don't want to let it take too much damage, because both of those unit combinations are very strong against High Templars. So you definitely want to be careful and not let your High Templar get out of control, because you don't want him to get on the front lines and take that damage, and then let the Colossi clean up the rest after you've gotten off a couple Sty Storm. Once again, no losses. This is the most difficult one. What I do here is hallucinate 2 Archons again with the Sentry, send them in to take the initial damage, and some of these siege tanks are going to siege up. After they do that, you're going to want to move in the Immortals to take the initial attack from the siege, and then also send in your Phoenix to Gravitron as many of those sieged up tanks as possible, then send the Zealots in to get us around. And it's important that once you get these siege tanks in the air, you take out as many as possible, and then get ready to put Gravitron the rest of the tanks as they come down from your Phoenix. And then with these last two tanks in the air, just keep them in the air as much as possible, and then as you can see, the Immortals and Zealots not having a problem cleaning that up. So once again, no losses on this final round. Perfect round. So overall, made it with 5 casualties only out of the available 10 to get a gold ranking on this level. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. That is mission number 2 of the challenge missions. There are 9, and like I said, I am planning on doing tutorials for all of them. So leave any comments if you guys have any questions or suggestions. I did see a couple people that had suggestions about how to minimize your casualties even more so, to do it without losing any Marines and such at all. So if you guys have any great tips to add to the tutorial, by all means leave those in the comments and help everybody else out that's struggling with getting these achievements. They may not be difficult for some, but I know that there are people out there that are still trying to pick this game up, and stuff like this helps them out tremendously. So thanks for watching, guys, and GG.